Buildcrafting and the mod system have gotten a huge makeover in Lightfall, so today I would like to just guide you through a lot of the changes, and I myself would like to figure out what are going to be the new cornerstones and basics of buildcrafting. This way, we can talk about more advanced builds in the near future. Armor Charge is probably the most significant change. Think of Armor Charge as a spin-off of Charged with Light, where whenever you pick up an Orb of Power, you get Armor Charge. You can stack up to 3 armor charges at base on your character. In order to increase this cap, you need to equip Charged Up, which is found in the chest armor slot. Each copy of Charged Up increases your maximum stacks by 1 up to a maximum of 6 armor charges. Bungie uses a color code system to make things easily identifiable. Mods that are green boost your armor charge generation capabilities in some way, like giving you more or giving it to allies. Blue mods cause your armor charge to decay over time while giving you some sort of a boost or effect until your armor charge runs out. And yellow ones provide an instantly consumed effect when you hit the right conditions and will take all of your armor charge. 2 more mods that generate armor charge are in the Helm slot, Powerful Friends and Radiant Light. They no longer give the plus 20 stat bonuses that they used to, which isn't really too surprising. Radiant Light gives armor charge to your teammates when you super, but gives more if they're on a different subclass than you, and Powerful Friends gives charge to nearby allies whenever you pick up an Orb of Power. Then we have Shield Break Charge in the Glove slot, giving you a charge whenever you break an enemy shield with the matching damage type. Next, in the class item slot, we have Empowered Finisher, which gives you a temporary armor charge after using a finisher if you don't have any charge at all, and Time Dilation, which extends the timer on your armor charges if they are decaying from the effects of another mod. And finally, we have Stacks on Stacks, which is in the Leg slot and costs 4 energy. This gives you a 2-for-1 deal. Every Orb of Power you pick up is now 2 charge instead of 1. While not new to Lightfall, something else of note are Siphon mods located in the Helm slot. These mods provide easy ways to make orbs of power for yourself, and being able to make orbs for yourself is quite valuable in many builds. Now that you have armor charge, we need something that consumes those charges to give us a benefit. Armor charge does not decay over time unless you have an armor charge consuming mod that says that it does, which is, again, one of the blue ones. We can pick from an instantly consuming effect or one that slowly drains over time. The ones that slowly drain your charge over time provide a constant effect as long as you have armor charge, and they drain at a rate of 1 charge every 10 seconds. However, this timer can be extended with the Time Dilation mod, which gives you more time based on how many copies of the Time Dilation mod you have equipped. It's 15 seconds for 1 copy, 18 seconds for 2, and 20 seconds for 3. Multiple mods of the same type have diminishing returns, and this goes for basically every mod in the game. Let's take a look at the mods that drain your armor charge over time first. These are the blue ones, and they are Fonts and Surges. Surge mods only appear in the Leg slot and can be stacked up to 3 times. A Surge mod boosts your weapon damage based on the mod that is equipped. You can do all weapon types: Kinetic, Arc, Solar, Void, Stasis, and Strand. One of these mods will boost your damage by 10% for as long as you have any charge on your character. Again, removing charge from your character at a rate of 1 every 10 seconds. 2 copies of this mod boost your damage to 17%, and 3 copies boost it to 22%. You can again see those diminishing returns. In PvP, the damage bonus is pretty negligible, with I believe people saying around 4 or 5% for 3 copies, but that could be a difference maker in some engagements. Obviously, to stack the mods that high, to have 3 copies, you're going to need to burn a lot of mod energy, and this is where things can get a bit more interesting. There are no more dedicated slots for certain mods anymore. You get 1 stat mod, 1 artifice mod slot if you have artifice armor, and 3 general mod slots. Raid mod slots do still exist on raid armor though. Artifice armor now gets a mod slot that provides a free +3 bonus to any stat that you want. Then we have the font mods, which boost the selected stat of a mod. Discipline, mobility, etc. These mods are found in every armor slot, but there's only 1 or 2 of them per slot. They're spread across all of them. You get +30 to the stat of the mod selected, with the next copy giving another 20, and then the final copy giving 10, for a maximum of 60 of a stat. However, due to the way that the mods are spread out across all of the armor pieces, it is possible to get plus 30 in every single stat whenever you have armor charge. That's 18 tiers of stats. Your armor charge isn't consumed at a faster rate for having multiple of these kinds of mods equipped. And with the ability to extend the duration of these effects and generate your own orbs of power, it is quite possible to have these bonuses up on a near permanent basis, although that's pretty much the only thing you'll be able to do. But with so much of the build crafting power moved to the seasonal artifact, at least at this time, it's a decent option for people who don't really want to get too heavily involved in the build crafting world, even after all of these simplifications. I'll show you the setup of this build towards the end of the video as an example. Next, we have the fully consuming charge mods in the Kickstart mods, Emergency Reinforcement, and Finishers. Grenade, Melee, and Utility Kickstart refund you back energy whenever you fully deplete the energy of that ability. The more armor charge you have, the more energy you will get back. You can stack multiple copies of the Kickstart mods in order to get back more energy per armor charge. However, no matter how many stacks of armor charge you have or how many copies of Kickstart you have, the most amount of energy you'll ever be able to restore in one proc of a Kickstart mod is about 50%. This is probably the most important bit of information that you can learn from the Kickstart mods. I've charted out all the different combinations of how many armor charge you have versus how many copies of a Kickstart mod you have here. It appears that using an extra copy of a Kickstart mod is basically the equivalent of an extra armor charge. So, for example, 2 stacks of armor charge and 1 copy of Kickstart is equal to 1 stack of armor charge and 2 copies of Kickstart. So to get that full 50% in one use of your melee, for example, you would need 6 armor charge and 1 Kickstart mod, or 5 armor charge and 2 Kickstarts, or 4 armor charge and 3 Kickstarts. But to go above 3 armor charge, you need to invest in charged up in your chest piece. You can see how things get a little complicated thanks to trying to find the balance of how much of each thing you should be going for and the opportunity costs of going for those things. Sure, you can throw in charged up times 3 on your chest piece, but now you get no options for resistance bonuses and you can only do a small stat mod. Over time, we'll develop new builds and probably find those sweet spots of energy to armor charge to total mods needed ratios. Emergency Reinforcement is Lightfall's Protective Light mod. Older players will remember this mod as being an auto-include in every endgame build due to its massive damage reduction. At base, with 1 copy of the mod and 3 stacks of armor charge, you'll be given a 5-second buff that reduces the damage that you receive when your shields are broken. 3 copies of this mod makes it 10 seconds, but 1 copy of Emergency Reinforcement and 2 copies of Charged Up makes it 11 seconds. I don't know the damage reduction value of Emergency Reinforcement at the moment, but given the strength of Woven Mail, I imagine the damage reduction is potentially pretty good. Then we have all of the finisher mods, which say exactly what they do, so you can just read all of them in-game. Historically, finishers haven't really been incorporated into many builds outside of getting more ammo, but with this new system in place, it wouldn't surprise me to see a build heavily feature the use of finishers. Finally, we have all of the other mods in the game that just affect your character in a flat way. You've seen a lot of these in the past if you've been playing. A lot of stuff has moved around, and because everything shares the same mod slots now, you need to make more decisions about your build. If you do one thing, you're going to have to sacrifice a different thing. If you want a heavy stat mod, that likely means 1 fewer mod in your other slots due to energy costs. One question I imagine being asked is about trying to combine both mods that decay your charge over time and mods that instantly consume it all at once. And for most cases, I'm going to say that this isn't a very good idea. First, if your build is too complicated, then it probably isn't going to be very fun to use, but also trying to juggle that much charge between multiple mods at the same time is generally not the best idea. I'm sure there are some builds out there that make it work, but I think we should learn the rules first and practice before we start breaking the rules. As an example, let's make that near permanent plus 30 stats build. This is a build that works at an incredibly basic level. Get orbs of power, which make our armor charge last as long as possible so that we maintain our boosted stats. It technically works with every kind of build that you can imagine, but stats tend to only go so far in a lot of builds. This is just to get you familiar with the thought process and the experience. The first thing we're going to need is all of those stat mods. You can remove any stats that you don't care about. So for example, on my Titan anyway, I'm probably going to ditch mobility and intellect for the time being, but there's nothing wrong with using all of them, and you should tweak things so that they fit your playstyle. Ditching mobility works in our favor because that frees up a surge mod to make our weapons do more damage. Okay, so we'll equip those mods. Cool. The next thing we need is to keep any charge that we get for as long as possible. So we want time dilation. That's in the class item slot. We're going to throw on 2 of those. So that's the basic part of our build. That's really about it. So now we can enhance it in a couple of ways. First off, I'm privy to the idea of getting more value out of our orbs of power in the form of stacks on stacks. Stacks on stacks gives us 2 charge for the price of 1, which means that 1 orb of power pickup is going to give us boosted stats for over 30 seconds. It is not that hard to pick up 1 orb of power every 30 seconds. And in fact, if we want to guarantee it, we can go to our helm slot and throw in an orb of power generating mod based on the weapons that we're using. You could even use your melee or grenade to make orbs in the arm slot with heavy-handed or firepower. Use whichever one you think you'll get the most use out of. Me, I'm using an Ikelos SMG right now, so I'm going to go with an arc mod in my helm. Cool. Now we make our own orbs, and they're really potent for armor charge. Now we can start filling in the rest of our armor mods with whatever we think is going to help. My boots have some free space, so I'm going to toss in 2 weapon surge mods, or, I would if these boots were masterworked. That's going to boost my weapon damage in addition to all those boosted stats. I'm not too worried about not having stat mods in my gear because the entire point of this build is to get those stats back from this mod setup. My helm is pretty open, and because this build isn't promoting any sort of particular ability playstyle, let's just go with a heavy ammo finder and scout to help my teammates, and then cap it off with a stat mod. My arms have some space. Let's make orbs with my grenade kills. My grenade mods are cheaper because of the Season 20 mod that reduces grenade mod costs, so I also happen to have room for a stat mod. My chest piece is wide open, so let's get some resistance mods in there. We'll rotate these based on what kind of damage we'll be fighting against. You could also do reserves too. Our boots are technically 10 out of 10 filled because they're supposed to be masterwork, so we'll just ignore that. And in our class item slot, we have space for a small stat mod. Awesome. We are completely using all of our energy, no wasted anything anywhere. Then, using the loadout feature, you can swing back to the main menu and save this in a free slot or overwrite an old build. And there we go. There's our first build. Again, this is a pretty generic build, but I think it's a good one for people who didn't really get too in tune with mods before these changes so that you can kind of get into the mindset. It's very simple. You get orbs of power, and then you get stats. And you just want to keep picking up orbs of power to maintain those stats. Easy. Keep in mind that to maximize your build the most, you need armor with high energy. If you're a newer player and you don't really have a ton of materials to upgrade your armor, don't worry too much for now. You can make a simplified version of this build by just reducing the amount of mods that you use. You'll probably only be able to use 1 time dilation mod instead of 2, or maybe you get rid of Font of Restoration instead, as an example. Hopefully this was a good introduction into the new mod world. I am actively working on more advanced builds for Season 20. I think Strand Titan's going to have a lot of fun this season, and if I were you, I would start working on the Quicksilver Storm Catalyst. Otherwise, I'm going to get back to figuring out some more builds. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.